Hello, my name is John Brink. I'm the podcasting here from Prince George, downtown Prince George, British Columbia. Prince George, for those of the listeners that are from other parts, and especially internationally, Prince George is in the center of British Columbia. A beautiful, beautiful place, full of nature. It's about 800 kilometers north of Vancouver. And today it's nearly February the 1st, and we have an interesting guest. His name is Ron Gallo. I've known him for quite a while, and he is in real estate, and he's going to share with us his ideas about real estate, not only in Prince George, but also in the region and in the province. Ron, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for having me, John.
Tell us a little bit about your background.
I'm going to start with my dad.
Okay.
The reason why is because there's a building in Prince George that no longer bears his name, but I always refer to it as the Gallo Building. So not unlike yourself, who came in here and wanted to make sure that there was a legacy left behind, he did the same thing. He was here very early on in the growth of Prince George. He had one of 3 vehicles when the vehicles were first here.
When?
We're talking way back when. We're talking back in the 1940s, 1950s.
Yeah.
So anyways, he had a butcher shop. He had a restaurant called the Silver Spike Restaurant. And then he used all of that to try and parlay it into the building of the very first brick building in Prince George.
Okay.
Again, I call it the Gallo Building. We know it as Books and Company.
That's on 3rd Avenue.
That is. It's right across from the Indian Friendship Center, which used to be the old courthouse.
Yeah, it's a beautiful building, actually.
It really is. And my dad wasn't around to see how it evolved from the Danish interiors to what it is now, but it's very much a cultural gathering. And for him, I think he would be very, very proud to see what his legacy is doing here in the city of Prince George. And again, it's a little bit disappointing from a family perspective that the name is not attached to the building anymore, but certainly it does bring a lot of fond memories for myself of my dad whenever I drive by it.
Yeah. And I remember the building when Danish Interior was in there, and I've always looked at it. I came in 1965, and I think the building was here then.
Yes, it was.
And it was always kind of looked at as a very special building, actually, for all the reasons that you said. It was then built out of brick. This was not the normal building style then, but a very, very nice building. And a little bit more then about your history.
So anyways, yeah, that was that was kind of my introduction to Prince George as well. It was shortly after that building was built that I arrived. And so I've been in Prince George for well over 50 years.
Were you born here then?
I was technically born in Vancouver, but Prince George is my home.
Yeah, okay.
I was here since I was the age of 3. I can't think of any other place that I would ever call home.
Right.
This was from day one. Certainly there's a lot of people, a lot of faces, a lot of places that this is Prince George for a home for a reason, and it's been here all my life. My family lives here now. I've got 3 children of myself. I've got 2 grandchildren.
Tell us a little bit about your children and your family.
Well, Michael is the oldest. He was the first Easter baby born in Prince George.
Okay.
He's got a little document at home from Colin Kinsley, who was the mayor at the time, who congratulated us for the first Easter baby in Prince George.
They celebrated an Easter birth. I always kind of thought of first of the year.
Yeah, the first of the year is the one that's more commonly known, but for some reason they did recognize Michael as the first one for the Easter long weekend.
Right.
Easter Sunday. He was born specifically on Sunday morning at 12:28 in the morning.
Okay.
So anyways, Michael's been here obviously all of his life as well. 2.5 years later, we welcomed Ryan to the fold, and he was born on Labor Day.
Yeah.
You see a trend going here?
Yeah, I see that.
Yeah. And then shortly after that, Amanda arrived, and she was this close to being a New Year's baby.
Yeah.
She was born December 31st.
Unbelievable, eh?
Yeah. So very, very interesting that our 3 kids were born so close to statutory holidays. But, it is what it is. A great group. I think that some of the philosophies that my dad instilled in me, I was able to instill on them.
Yeah.
Michael has worked one job his entire life, and he's very, very good at it.
What does he do?
He is warehouse manager and delivery driver for Canadian Springs. Has been doing that since he was in high school.
Okay.
And he's evolved through that. He's very loyal, very dedicated, and he is thinking about maybe perhaps spreading his wings a little bit and going and getting a little bit more schooling and doing something a little bit different.
Okay.
I think maybe that's because he looks at his dad, and I keep trying to remind him, he said, don't follow in my footsteps. I don't know what I want to be when I get older.
Exactly. Yeah.
Ryan works for the city of Prince George. A few years ago, there was a video of a city worker in the month of October who was working on a hydrant that had been clipped by a semi-truck.
I remember that.
That was my boy.
Yeah. That clipped it or that fixed it?
No, that fixed it.
Yeah.
He was the one that was, in
just
there
going
gushing
like
water. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Amanda has been working very, very hard as well here lately. The interesting thing about my daughter is, I'm not sure if she got it from you or who, but she's gotten into powerlifting.
Wow.
And yeah, so she does a lot.
Yeah.
I know Ryan was doing it until he became a dad.
Yeah.
But Amanda's taken that over. She works for a big company here in town, Venture Elevators.
Okay.
She's been in insurance. But yeah, no, obviously I could go on for a long time about
all
my kids.
into sports, right?
They are, all of them, all a little bit different. Ryan was more football oriented.
Yeah.
Michael was a little bit more archery, and Ryan then went into powerlifting, and that's when Amanda started kind of following suit.
Right.
They've both competed in powerlifting. They've both brought home some awards and some
trophies.
titles from it. Yeah.
Yeah, good. And you are too, but we'll talk about it a little bit later. So tell us a little bit more about you. What did you do? So you had a family, you were here in Prince George, you got all your training in Prince George, you went to school?
I did, and I don't recommend that people follow in my footsteps, because I was one of those ones that was able to kind of achieve some of my goals without actually going through school, which is not necessarily something that I would endorse for a bunch of people. When I was in Simon Fraser University looking to pursue a Bachelor of Arts in Criminology, that's when my dad got pretty sick, and I ended up coming back home.
Yeah.
And at the time, I was still young enough that I wanted to go and do some. The funniest thing is that one of my favorite highlights of my working career has always been the fact that I'm in front of a microphone or doing something for other people. And that all started here in Prince George at a place called the Rock Pit, where I started DJing.
Yeah, so when was that?
That would have been 1984.
And that was, so you were a DJ, and you did that for quite a while, right?
I really did. I mean, even now, we're a month after New Year's Eve, but even this past New Year's Eve, I was looking at the clock on the wall going, you know, it's not that long ago that I was the one that was emceeing the party. I was the one doing the countdown to midnight. I was the one that was making sure that people had a good time on New Year's Eve.
Yeah. And then, were you involved in radio and television as well?
I was.
Yeah.
So some of the jobs as a club DJ ended up parlaying themselves into an opportunity at the local radio station.
Which one?
It was CKPG radio.
Yeah.
At first, it wasn't to be on the radio. It was just to fill in as an operator, and I didn't mind that. And it was really interesting because I'm known to have a bit of a booming party type voice, but I guess it doesn't really relay into radio. So I was told at the time that I didn't have a voice for radio, which was kind of disheartening.
Interesting. Why would that be?
I'm not sure. It was an interesting thought from the program director at the time.
Okay.
But the radio station still believed in me, and they believed in me enough that they allowed me to be the operator to start. And then they gave me one of those really odd live shifts on the weekend where, you know, the demographics and the listeners and the ears tuned in are low. Yeah. And then I decided that I liked television. So I started working inside television part-time as situation would unfold. And it just happened that way. There was 3 people that ended up being away all at the same time for different reasons.
So you were it.
Somebody needed to step up and make sure that the newscast went to air, and that was me.
Yeah.
So that ended up turning into a full-time position as the master control supervisor.
So what happened is saying, where is this one, that one? We got no one. You're it. Were you nervous?
Obviously, yeah. This is live television. This isn't an opportunity to be able to do anything else. The news happens. It happens live. So there was a lot of people there. Some of them are no longer around, which is unfortunate. But Mike Woodworth took a lot of time to try and help me develop as a technical director, because
he was there for a long time.
He was, and he of course cared about his reporters and the people that were delivering the news.
Very dedicated individual.
And I'm behind the scenes. People don't see me, but I'm the one that can make them look good, or I'm the one that if I make a mistake, they look really bad.
Right.
So it was important that we all work together as a team.
So how long did you do that?
Quite a few years, actually. I ended up doing that I was at the radio and television station combined for 17 years.
Yeah. So that's a career. Mm-hmm. So what happened then? Because then you switched.
Yeah, if my mom and dad were realized what I had done, I mean, I'm pretty thankful for my wife for sticking through with it. So 2007 rolls around. If you follow junior hockey, that date means something to the people that follow the Prince George Spruce Kings. 2007 was the year that they won the bid to host the junior championship, the national championships.
Here in Prince George.
And so at the time, the radio station was going through, television station was going through a little bit of a restructuring. So they were changing some of the job titles and the people that were in different jobs. They didn't want to lose me, but because it was a union shop, they had to go through a certain format and a formula. So they had to offer me an either or. So it was either or a package to be laid off, or it was a lower position still in television.
Or didn't work for you.
In my infinite wisdom, my decision was to choose the package and go and help the Spruce Kings host the RBC Royal Bank Cup.
Okay.
I've been with the Prince George Spruce Kings for 28 seasons now. It was something that I was very passionate about, very dedicated about. I've done everything with the Spruce Kings except skate for them. I've been behind the bench in training camps. Certainly I've worked in the office. I'm more commonly known as the voice and the person who plays the music too loud at the arena right now, and have been for a number of years.
Right.
But certainly that was a defining moment in my life.
But you're still involved now.
Still involved. They've got a big game. They've got a big game. We're recording this perhaps on the day before the big game, but they're recognizing 50 years of hockey through 5 nights in the season called Decade Nights.
Right.
And the next one is going to be the 90s night.
Yeah. Wow. And that is in the next couple of days.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then you be handling the music and the commentary and all of that kind of stuff.
Exactly. Yeah. In-house.
In-house.
Yeah. In-house. They've got a different broadcast team, but I've done that as well. I've done the radio play-by-play on the radio station, and traveled on the bus, and I've done it all.
So there, I didn't add it all up, but in any event, that you're still doing that after all this time. And then you made some more changes in your career path as well.
I did.
From time to time.
I did. I wanted to try to quote unquote retire from the Prince George Spruce Kings, but unfortunately volunteers don't retire.
No.
I left the Spruce Kings to pursue auto sales at Prince George Motors. I was selling Ford vehicles.
Yeah.
I was doing that for about 4 years, and it was during that time that you, Scott, Sonny, all recognized me and offered me an opportunity to try real estate.
Yeah.
So I'm into real estate thanks to you, John.
Yeah, I know.
So
yeah. And so we set up a company, the real estate company, and you were one of the key individuals there, right?
Well, I certainly do appreciate that. I certainly think that the key individual is the person that's sitting across from me. Yeah. I mean, it's your vision, it's your belief in people that definitely give people an opportunity to succeed. And sometimes they succeed beyond their expectations and they don't know what to do with it.
The key to that, Ron, in my opinion, is, the foundation of my life has always been attitude, avoid the negative, passion, find your passion, and then that makes going to work so much easier in the mornings, and you give it all you got, and then work ethic, which then results into success.
Oh, 100%.
And you have that in spades, and that's probably where the problem with the radio was, that you were so excited about being there, that they were maybe not quite used to that.
No, it's probably true. And I mean, to expand on your cliche, find something that you enjoy to do and you'll never work a day in your life.
Precisely. Yeah, absolutely. So then, we kind of brought you into the real estate away from the cars, and you then took the courses in real estate and did all the other things and then started to do it, but you have that natural people thing about you that and creating contacts, and you became quite successful in your field and still are doing it today.
I am still doing it today, and I think a lot of it is because of my longevity in the city of Prince George. I think it includes my longevity with the Prince George Spruce Kings, and certainly being active in the community. It's one of the interesting things about Prince George. Prince George has so many things that are unique to them. When other cities try to duplicate them, they never achieve the same success.
No, I agree with that. Yeah.
So I guess where I'm going with all of that is that, I mean, I appreciate what you're saying, but certainly I'm not here without the support and the belief of people in me.
Oh, there's no question about that. The other thing that you've been quite involved in was the cancer clinic and all the things around it, and especially the biking. Tell us a little bit about all of that, because you've been very, very instrumental in getting that off the ground, and obviously you're still very, very active in it.
I have to find the date on my calendar because I'm not very good with some anniversary dates when they involve me. But in the month of February, it'll be 10 years to the day when I had my aha moment. My wife said, we're going for a walk to Spruce Land. And that's only 2 kilometers from where I live. I'm hanging around with hockey players. I'm seeing endurance sports athletes. I'm identifying myself as one of them. Like I'm in that kind of ballpark, if you will.
Yeah.
So I didn't think of myself as being out of shape or in trouble until I went on that 2-kilometer walk, John.
Yeah.
It took a lot out of me to get to the Save On Foods at Spruce Land Mall.
Right.
And I was so happy when we were there, and then the realization set in that I'm going to have to walk back.
Yeah.
And that was really the aha moment for me.
Yeah.
So 10 years ago, we had a 4-year-old puppy at the time still.
Yeah.
She became the biggest benefactor of it, because the very next day I got up, we started walking.
Yeah.
We started walking and walking and walking, and that's all I was doing.
Yeah.
I hadn't adjusted my diet or anything like that, and everybody is going to have different paths to success when it comes to weight loss or physical health. For me, I was drinking way too much soft drinks. And as soon as I stopped drinking those in combination with the activities that I was participating in, daily walks, the weight fell right off.
Healthy lifestyle.
Way healthier lifestyle.
Yeah.
And even today, 10 years later, I think I still deal with those demons, if you will. Processed foods, some of the sugars and stuff like that. Otherwise, I'd still be lighter than I am right now. But I've lost a lot of weight, and
you look in good shape.
I thank you. I attribute a lot of it to the walking that I started in 2012, and it wasn't until 2013 that we kind of parlayed that into hiking. I realized that I was too heavy to run, and it's too hard of a shock onto the system, especially on the knees.
Yeah.
So we were doing some hiking, and a good friend of mine decided that we're going to go and hike the West Coast Trail.
Okay.
And we thought, well, why not? It's a 7-day hike.
That's a big one, right?
It's a huge one.
Up and down or what?
Lots of up and downs. If you
Yeah.
haven't done the West Coast Trail, depending on the time of the year, the weather will play an
Where
impact.
is it for those of our guests that are listening from outside of British Columbia?
So if you're looking at Vancouver Island,
Yeah.
the southern tip is Victoria. Just above Victoria is a place called Port Renfrew.
Okay.
And then if you follow that western shoreline
Okay.
up, you'll find Alberni Valley, you'll find Port Alberni. And
Yeah.
just south of there is a place called Bamfield.
Okay, south of Tofino.
Yeah, Tofino and all of that, but you've come inland a little bit
Yeah.
at this pot.
Bamfield, yeah.
Yeah, Bamfield is right below Port Alberni. So from Port Renfrew to Alberni Valley,
Yeah.
to Bamfield is the West Coast Trail.
Yeah. How many Ks?
Honestly, can't remember.
But
You
a
can
long
do
way.
it. You can do it in. Some people have been known to do it in 3 days. Certainly would never recommend to do it. More common is a fast time is 5 days, and the most popular is 7 days.
Yeah. Very popular though, because I've heard it many, many times. I've not done it, but you know.
Yeah, there's ladders, there's hand carts that you have to pull yourself across little gullies.
Right.
You end up walking right across, right along the shoreline. You camp along the shoreline. It's absolutely beautiful. If we have a minute, I'll just tell you one of the most devastating scenes that I've seen though is the plastic waste that gets washed up onto the shoreline.
Yeah.
Such a pristine area of the province, and yet it's damaged by all of the plastics.
Yeah. And again, plastic. We have to find another way, right?
Yeah.
You know, and that includes shopping bags and around my house, anything plastic we're not allowed to have it. My wife is very, very strict about it.
It's so tough though. I mean, you go shopping at any store and everything seems to be packaged in plastic.
We can find other materials that will replace that are friendly to the environment other than plastic. But anyway, that's a conversation, but we both feel the same about it.
Yeah.
So you did that, and then where does the bike comes
It actually comes into play on the West Coast Trail.
Okay.
You have this much time and you're with 2 or 3 other people and that's it.
Yeah.
You talk about everything.
Yeah.
Well, the conversation came up. Have you ever heard of this bike ride that goes from Vancouver to Seattle? No. And well, what is it? And I don't know. We heard about this bike ride. We got to figure it out. So sure enough, came back to Prince George, started doing some research, and there it is. There's this bike ride. It's called the Ride to Conquer Cancer, and it goes from Vancouver, and it ends up in it's Redmond, but it ends up in Seattle.
Yeah.
So it turns out there's a team in Prince George. They're called Wheelin Warriors of the North.
Exactly.
And they're having a recruitment drive in October.
Yeah.
Well, let's go.
Yeah.
So next thing you know, we're signed up, and I'm at the Northern Sports Center. Scott
When
McWalter.
was it?
This was still the fall, winter of 2013, going into 2014.
Okay.
So I'm working my butt off on the bike in the wintertime, doing my training and
Get in shape.
Yeah, I got to ride a bike. This is a huge ride. There's going to be 2 days of riding, and it's 120 some odd kilometers each day.
Exactly.
So yeah, it's going to be big. It's going to be big. And I still remember to this day, I had this old bike, and it was heavy and all the rest of it, but that's my bike.
Yeah.
And I went out on a group ride. It was April, could have been early May, but it was springtime. And I'm just sweating. And I'm like, there's no way I'm this slow. So I'm just fighting to keep up with the other people. And the real cycling bug did not bite until I went and talked to Hans at Evolve.
Yeah.
And Hans said, well, you need a road bike, Ron.
Yeah.
So he set me up with a road bike. I got on there. It's like wind. In comparison, I felt like a schoolboy again.
Yeah.
It was an amazing experience to get on that bike and just sail away.
Yeah.
And then of course I'm looking over my shoulder and everybody's behind me again.
Yeah.
And some people still say to this day, that was the day that I went forward and never looked back.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's true, because that's where the cycling went. So we trained through the summer.
Yeah.
The ride itself, it's not a race, but that first year it was a little bit different. The first year was a great big windstorm. It was huge. It downed trees, it downed power lines, it blew porta potties across the parking lot. It was bad. It was tough to be able to ride in that. But we did, and then the next day it was a little bit calmer, and we're in the state of Washington, and we're riding the rest of the distance on day number 2. The devastation from the wind in the cornfields was absolutely amazing. Every corn husk was just bent straight over. And it was during that ride that I realized that, you know what, I'm faster than most of the people that I'm riding with. I think I should look for something a little bit different.
Right.
So again, back online and start looking for different items. And I found a race that's called the Grand Fondo Badlands. And
say again?
Grand Fondo Badlands.
Okay.
It's called a ride because there is a little section where the riders on the bikes have to get on a ferry.
Okay.
And the ferry takes you across the Red Deer River.
Okay.
And then you resume your ride.
Where is it?
Drumheller.
Okay.
So my sister lives in Airdrie. I'm like, this is a great opportunity. I get to do a bike ride. I get to go visit my sister.
Yeah.
And it was another eye-opening experience because I missed the first ferry.
Yeah.
Like all of the best riders were on that first ferry because only so many can get on a ferry at a time.
Yeah.
And then you got to sit and you got to wait for the next
You
ferry.
were not part of the first group?
I wasn't part of the first group. That only happened once. It hasn't happened since.
Yeah.
I've done the Grand Fondo Badlands now 5 times.
Yeah.
The very first time that I did it, I finished like 97th. The next time I finished in the 40s. Next time I finished 24th.
Yeah.
Then I finished 10th.
Yeah.
And
amazing.
That's where I'm at lately.
Yeah. So that then, and then you train a lot, and I've seen you guys training because how many people are in that group here in Prince George?
It varies from year to year, but every year it seems to have a little bit of an exponential growth.
Yeah.
I'd be uncertain to say that we are over 100, but we are very, very close to 100 if we're not over 100 registered riders.
And the ride now is not from Vancouver to Seattle.
COVID times last year, what they did was they did something very unique. So with COVID times, what they did is they broke up the ride into regions in the province. Every region that has a cancer center had a ride.
Yeah.
So Prince George has the BC Cancer Center for the north.
Yeah.
We had a regional ride.
Right.
I was actually the one that was in charge of coming up with the routes.
Yeah.
So we did a bunch of out and back routes that included short distances for new riders.
Yeah.
And a long 160 kilometer ride for those that wanted to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's now called the Tour de Cure, and that happened ever since they lost their 2020 ride because of COVID.
Yeah.
So the ride never happened in 2020.
Yeah.
In 2021, it was the regional ride. Now in 2022, what the Tour de Cure is going to look like is a ride that's out and back from Chilliwack with 3 distances, 50, 100, and 160 kilometers.
And when is it?
I have to double check. It's the Saturday in August. I think the August 26th
People
weekend.
that want to participate can still contact you? Or?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, if anybody wants to contact me directly, I mean, I give my phone number. They can give me a call and tell me why they're calling because they might not be on my phone. I have lots of contacts, but not everybody.
Yeah.
250-617-9268.
Okay.
Give me a call and ask me about the cancer ride, now called Tour de Cure.
How much did it raise the last time?
Every time we do it, it raises a little bit more and a little bit more. This group, a big thanks to Karen Pichet and the people that started this a number of years ago, they passed the $1 million mark.
Yeah.
Since I was involved in 2014, especially since I became a co-captain in 2015, what I've seen is I've seen the growth of riders and I've seen the growth of fundraising dollars.
Yeah.
And more importantly, what I think I've seen is the money that was being raised here in Prince George was going to Vancouver to be dispersed around the entire province.
Right.
Now what's happening is the money that's being raised in Prince George is
Stays
staying
here, right?
In fact, we're getting topped up.
Yeah, yeah, and that again, is it's amazing the amount that was already raised, and obviously we individually and as a company have been quite involved in all of this as well, because an amazing initiative, amazing individuals in our cancer clinic here is also amazing, together with the university hospital, and we want to bring it even further than it is already, and that's all a work in progress, right?
One of the things that I want to add to that, it is a work in progress, but one of the things that I want to add to that is when you look at the number of riders and see their background, yes, there's a very diverse background.
Yeah.
I'm real estate.
Right.
I fortunately don't have the disease that we're riding for.
Right.
That's not true with all of the riders. But a great majority of the riders that we come from
have been affected.
And they come from the health industry.
Yeah.
So the BC Cancer Centre for the North themselves, I mean, I could probably list off 7 riders off the top of my head that work in that office that benefit because of the money that's being raised, so that they can do their work.
Yeah.
They know the importance of this.
Yeah.
They're the ones that are out there riding, trying to raise even more money.
Yeah.
So if you want to see just how important it is, take a look at who's riding.
Yeah, and then the other part about it is for those that want to participate, it goes directly to the fundraising for cancer, and it stays in the North, and it gives people to an ability not only to do something that is healthy, it's an amazing group of individuals, but also to directly add to the fundraising.
Absolutely, and I do want to thank the Tour de Cure, because one of the things that was, I mean, it's a huge challenge. I felt it in 2014 when I was training for it. You're looking at all of these miles and you're going to have to ride for 2 days.
Yeah.
What the Tour de Cure has done now is not taken away the ride, but they've realized that the ride needs to be a little bit more open and a little bit more inviting. And certainly having a 50-kilometer distance to ride, it sounds like a lot, but
for some people is doable then, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah. Excellent. So now, and shifting gears a bit, is that we want to talk about real estate, so, and obviously you're a realtor, you work for Royal Lepage now.
Yeah.
And tell us about the real estate market first in the Prince George region. And since I came here in 1965, real estate was altogether different then, and houses that were built in the 60s, 70s, 80s used to, 5, 10, 15 years ago, used to sell for about $150,000 a piece, and they be nice with a nice basement, 3 bedrooms, nothing overly fancy, with a grass or a carport, and it used to be $150,000 plus or minus, and then it's shifted to the 150,000 became a 2 to 250, then it became a 3, then a 4, then a 5, and now.
For sure, those houses that you're talking about, I just showed one the other day in the Miller edition, $450,000, and that's a house that was built even before 1965. That was built in 1955.
Yeah.
For sure, you are looking at houses that have been here for a number of years, selling in the 350 to 450, depending on what features that they have. There's definitely one feature that everybody wants nowadays, and that's the investment opportunity with having a rentable suite.
Yeah. That's a mortgage helper, right?
Yeah.
Something like that, right? The other thing that I've noticed, Ron, and you being in the field, is that the market even now is still active, meaning that there are more buyers than sellers a lot of times, which drives the market, but also that prices are going up higher, and houses that were $1 million were totally seldom would you see any houses here like that. Right now it's more or less not quite common, but quite regular. You see that houses approaching that level, and nice houses, and houses that are being built here can compete with anything that is built in down the coast or in the Okanagan or on the island. So our style has changed, costs have gone up, obviously, and people demanding more things in their houses.
Absolutely. And I mean, you've touched on so many things there, John. Let's start with the $1 million property that you've alluded to. It wasn't even 3-4 years ago where if you heard that there was $1 million house in Prince George, you went, what? Really? In Prince George? And now you're seeing 1.65 million. There's 2 houses right now in Prince George that are for sale for $1.65 million. 2 of them. To have $1 million listing is not uncommon in Prince George anymore.
Yeah.
And that's all happened within the last 4 years. Certainly the builds have gotten stronger, like you said, but there is a demand. And when we look at prices, if you roll the clock back almost 2 years ago, that's when we were starting to hear about this COVID disease that was coming across, and it was starting to affect different things. And in March, everything went into a shutdown. I think it was April or May where the government decided that they had to do something to make sure that they allowed the economy to continue. And one of the big things that they did was they lowered that Bank of Canada interest rate.
Exactly.
That Bank of Canada interest rate has been pretty stagnant for those 2 years.
Yeah.
Well over a year and a half. There's now talk of it's going to start coming back up again.
Maybe in March.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But what happened with that is it did allow for the real estate market to take off, to become a bit of a boom. And there's, again, another reason for that. What we're seeing is people that have had an opportunity to sell their houses in the Lower Mainland and end up with a surplus of cash that they're able to bring to Prince George because they can now work remotely.
Cashing in at the equity, right?
Exactly. Yeah. I'm working with clients right now where both of them work remotely from home 95% of the time.
Yeah.
The only time they're ever going to the office is maybe for a quick little meeting, and the meeting is in Vancouver. Well, the flight time is still only an hour.
It's no problem, right? And then the other part, but I feel people are starting to discover, and our viewers can see behind us is Prince George's blue sky, and not untypical for Prince George at this time of year. A little bit brisk around the 0, but still very, very nice. But the area is such a beautiful, beautiful area because all around us is forest, and we see lakes. We have hundreds, if not thousands, of lakes always in a small distance. We have wildlife here, may it be foxes, may it be moose, may it be deer, may it be bears, may it be grizzlies, you name it. It's such an amazing place to live.
It really is. And it's funny that you talk about rural in Prince George only takes like 5 minutes and you're in a rural area. 20 minutes and you're definitely outside of the city of Prince George. But in that 5 to 20 minute distance, that's where most of the growth has been seen.
Yeah.
Now, the BC assessments that came out, they represent prices that we saw back on July the 1st.
Yeah, so they're lagging somewhat, right?
6 months behind.
Yeah.
But even those, you can look at them and you can see places like Beaverly, where city of Prince George as a whole is considered to have seen 20% growth in market value for their BC assessments. You go to the rural area and you're seeing 22, 24, 26%, depending if you're north, west, or south.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to see that where you're seeing the growth is actually where people want to have a little bit of space around them. They want the deer to come through their backyard.
Yeah. Another thing that we see it on is as well, I believe, I hear that over and over and over again, is that people from other urban areas are looking towards, the more rural areas to places like Prince George, where there is colleges, universities. Over my shoulder, I can see the new amazing swimming pool that is being built. All the infrastructure. You see, we have a symphony, we have amazing infrastructure in terms of from a small city perspective, and then the hospitals and all the other things. And people start looking at the North End and saying, you know something, and especially with what you already indicated, working away from offices at downtown Vancouver on the 20th floor or wherever they are, being here 5 minutes away from the job, and then with all the other things around it. A lot of people looking at this, not only from a living, but also from an investment perspective.
The investment perspective, I think, is very strong right now in Prince George. I don't have any kind of real numbers to kind of work with. But certainly when you look at some of the investment properties that have been for sale, they have been grabbed up, and they've been grabbed up quickly. And a lot of times what I'm hearing from different people, they can't afford to buy the investment property in the Lower Mainland anymore. They have to look outside that region.
Right.
And you're right, Prince George shows significant growth. Prince George 10, 15, 20 years ago was still a small community where people went, well, what does it have to offer?
Right.
Since the arrival of the university, that has been steadily changing.
And the college.
And the college, of course. But the college has been here for a long time. The university is about 26, 27 years. But yes, you look downtown over your shoulder, and you're absolutely right. You can see 3, 4 buildings that are being sprung up right around us. There's others that have been completed. There's the art gallery. There's still recreation. There's still opportunities for everybody. So close to nature. When you live up here, you either have a place on the lake, or you have a friend that has a place on the lake, and you have a place to go, and you're there in 15, 20, half hour at the most.
And then there's still an objective also to, it has been going on for years, but it's still something that I deeply believe is a building for the performance arts, is another building that at some point will happen in Prince George. So the... and then the other part in terms of, we have been working on a center of excellence like that kind of merits BCIT, with more industry happening here and a lot of the trades, in particular in the new technologies. We need a facility that will train people here in the North who then will stay in the North. And we all, really believe in all of that.
I think so, and I mean, I'm speaking to a gentleman that has a great vision. I mean, you think about the trade center that your name is attached to, and that happened when we needed trades, and we needed that trades training. So I mean, if we end up continuing on that path, 100%, we need to make sure that everything is looked after. We touch upon everything, but maybe not quite there fully yet.
Right. And so if you look now at from your perspective at the real estate, where will it be going from here? Obviously, the quality of the developments are improving from where before not as much thought went into it, but now the market demands that we equal the building styles and what we put into them as they have in the Okanagan, the coast, or the island, or wherever else.
No, absolutely. I mean, I don't have a crystal ball, but I can tell you that there seems to be a desire. As much as we talk about open concept, there needs to be an area where people can feel like they've got away from the rest of the house.
Right.
What I'm referring to is like a sitting area, whether it be for library purposes or just like a hobby. Workout rooms are becoming quite popular. Games rooms are becoming quite popular. So extra rooms for people to participate with very specific activities that they have in mind.
Right.
So if you're thinking of it from a building perspective, the quote unquote home office being off the dining room and just being off that counter, that's not enough anymore. People need to walk into a house and go, that's my office.
Right.
And that's, that's the guest room, and that's where the kids are going to be able to play. Like, they need to see that there's these little pockets of activities can happen in these different areas. As far as continued growth and prices, again, don't have a crystal ball. I do see right now we're in a little bit of a period where we're going to start seeing, again, offers that are at or above list. We're already kind of seeing it. The banks put a little bit of a hold on that when they decided that they were going to make sure that they were doing assessments with every purchase, so to make sure that the prices weren't getting out of hand. Make sure that they were staying close to what the market value could dictate.
Right.
That's still the case in Prince George, but gone are the price reductions.
Right.
When we talk about price reductions, if I see a bunch of price reductions on listings in Prince George, that tells me one of two things. Number one, it is priced too high, and the buyers are savvy to that.
Right.
Or number two, it's priced too high, not just price point, but based on the condition of the house.
Yeah.
Price,
or weakness in the market.
Well, the weakness in the market usually means that there's extra inventory. Right now, it's the exact opposite. If there's a listing today happening right now, realtors are jumping on that opportunity for their clients to try and book a showing as soon as possible, because it is going to have a huge number of showings, and in 3 or 4 days, it's probably going to end up with multiple offers. One of the biggest changes that I've seen in the last year is what's now called direction of offers. So a listing realtor, when they're talking to somebody who's trying to sell their house, they'll ask them, do you want to look at the first offer that comes in, or do you want to wait until 4 days from now and review all of the offers that come in?
Okay, interesting.
That's a luxury that the sellers have today that they didn't have a few years ago. A few years ago, it was you never even hear about that. But now, because the demand is so high, you can do that. You can say, I'm not going to review offers until Saturday at 2 o'clock. Book your showings the next 3 days, and we'll review offers once 2 o'clock rolls around Saturday.
Yeah, and there is really not much that is going to change it, other than the Bank of Canada has announced that they will tighten up on interest rates probably in March, but not. I'm still from the area that that in the early '80s, interest rates to cool off the economy went as high as well into the 20% rate. That will not happen again.
No crystal ball, but I would be absolutely surprised to see it go more than double where it's at right now.
And now is it at what?
Depending on looking at it from a person getting into the market who's going to ask for a pre-approval mortgage rate, they should be expecting to see something between 2.7%, 3%, depending on the lender. A year ago, it was still possible to get something closer to 2%. But so it has moved up a little bit.
Moderately.
But now if you go and get your pre-approval, that interest rate that you're quoted is locked in for 120 days. And if for some reason the Bank of Canada rate drops and your interest rate gets lower and there's an opportunity for a lower interest rate, you get that one.
Okay.
But if the Bank of Canada rate goes up...
Protects you from the upside, right?
Yeah, and if the Bank of Canada rate goes up, you still have this good rate for 120 days. So if I was talking to a buyer right now, I would tell them one of the first things you do before you even look at anything that's on the market, get that pre-approval. Know that you've got your best interest rate locked in, and know how big of a purchase you can make.
Exactly. And so there is still a lot of activity, and then it appears to me there is not quite as much building going on as there was, because it takes a long time, and I can speak with some expertise because I'm a developer as well, obviously. And is that, and we are one of the larger developers in the city and the region, is that it takes a long time to get development permits and to get infrastructure developed, because it costs a lot to acquire the properties and then to put in a subdivision, that means put in the deep services and all the other things that are required. The cost is going up and up all the time.
Yeah, I'm not an expert in it, and I would hope that if you have any kind of input in it, speeding up that process would help a lot. And I think it's one of the reasons why when you submit a budget for something and you say it's going to cost this much, and then when completion comes and you find out that it costed this much, it's because of that timeline before you even get to dig. All of the prices have gone up. Supply chain demands right now have put a real impact on the price of the items that go into building a house.
Exactly. So but developing a lot of times from the time that you have a property until you can start putting in deep services and put it in on the market is at least 2 years. So there is risk attached, and and all of that sort of things. But in the meantime, things will keep developing, and the likelihood is that prices will keep going up to a certain extent. All right.
No, absolutely, and I mean, it seems to be one of the truths about real estate. Real estate always either rebounds or continues on its upward trend.
But still a good investment, right? For most people.
What I'm seeing today, it is the investment to make.
Yeah. And even for younger people, although it is tough sometimes, but there are ways in which they can improve it by what you were saying earlier, is to have, I don't like to say a basement, because a basement today is usually not a basement. They are usually 10-foot ceilings.
Yeah.
And they develop it very nicely into mortgage helpers that will help, right?
And I think that's the difference between what we're seeing being built within the last 5 years and previous to that. Before, it was a basement that was just being renovated into a suite.
Right.
But now, very much so, the new buildings are being designed that they're 1 or a 2-bedroom suite is part of the house.
And beautiful.
Yes.
Right? And a lot of times.
Yeah.
Now, that all being said then, Ron, so now we are in today, and you are a realtor in this very successful one. And, so where do you go from here in terms of your career? It kind of feels to me like you kind of found your niche between that and still being active in sports and all the community. You're very involved in the community. You're a community individual, right?
I think almost to a fault. And I say that to be careful what I'm saying. I don't want to work with 100 clients all at the same time, because I'd never be able to give them the quality of service that I think that they deserve.
Right.
So I work with fewer clients, try and make sure that they're looked after, try and make sure that I'm available for them when they need me to be available for them. But you're 100% correct. On my calendar, I have May the 15th circled, and I plan on being in New York for the Grand Fondo New York. It's a 160-kilometer Pro-Am race.
Excellent, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not going to win it, but I was strong enough the last time that I went that I was given what's called an elite corral status, which moves me up into closer to the front of the group and closer to the professionals that are going to be racing this course.
Yeah.
And for me, I just want to be able to finish under 5 hours and I'll be happy. But certainly, like you said, there's training that goes into that and all the rest of it. So I want to be my client as well as look after other clients that are out there that need their real estate needs looked after. And I can't do that if I'm doing and looking after too many clients or focusing too much on just myself.
With all the things that you've done, from radio to cars to real estate, I kind of think you found your niche and the right location, and obviously it presents itself in the way you act. And what I see in you is in abundance is attitude, passion, work ethic, and do all the things that you have to do for your clients.
I'm pretty sure I know who I'm thanking for that.
Ron, thank you for the interview, and wish you all the luck.
It was my absolute pleasure. Thank you so much, John.
Yeah, thanks, Ron.